The White Lady of the Castle was Germany. The White Lady of the Castle. The cold night air clung to the ancient stone walls of Eltz Castle as though it were a blanket of sorrow. The moonlight filtered through the heavy clouds, casting eerie shadows across the castle grounds. Deep in the forested hills of Germany, the castle had stood for centuries, enduring wars, plagues, and the slow passage of time. But through it all, one presence had never left: the White Lady. For generations, locals had whispered her name, warning each other not to linger near the castle after dark. She was said to be the ghost of a noblewoman, cursed to roam the halls forever, mourning her lost children and seeking redemption for the crimes she had committed long ago. Those who saw her would be struck by an overwhelming sense of dread, for her appearance was a portent of death. Tonight, as the hour approached midnight, the young steward of the castle, Lucas, finished his rounds. He was new to the position, having only recently taken over from his father, who had worked in the castle for decades. His father had warned him of the White Lady, but Lucas had dismissed it as a folktale meant to scare children. Now, alone in the vast, empty castle, he felt a growing unease. The wind howled through the cracks in the walls, and the flickering candles cast ghostly figures on the ancient tapestries. Lucas made his way through the great hall, his footsteps echoing in the silence. As he reached the foot of the grand staircase, he thought he saw something out of the corner of his eye, a flash of white. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest. The stories his father had told him rushed back to his mind. The White Lady only appears before a death. Brushing off the thought, Lucas shook his head and continued up the stairs. The dim light barely illuminated the winding corridors, and as he turned a corner, a chill ran down his spine. Standing at the far end of the hallway, barely visible in the darkness, was a figure dressed in white. Her gown seemed to shimmer in the pale moonlight that crept through the narrow windows. She stood motionless, her face obscured by a veil that fluttered gently as though moved by an unseen breeze. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. He blinked, hoping she would vanish, but she remained, staring in his direction, silent, still, and sorrowful. The stories were true. She was real. Lucas wanted to turn and run, but something held him there, rooted to the spot. He had heard the tales of the White Lady, but never had he imagined encountering her. His mind raced as he tried to remember the details of her legend. She had been a noblewoman, a beautiful lady of the court, married to a powerful count. They lived a life of luxury and happiness in the castle, surrounded by wealth and power. But her joy was short-lived. The Count, a ruthless man, was often away at war, and rumors of his infidelity spread throughout the kingdom. In his absence, she grew lonely, and in time, she found solace in the arms of another. Her lover was a commoner, a man far beneath her station, but their love was passionate and secretive. When the Count returned from battle and discovered the affair, his rage was boundless. In a fit of jealousy, he ordered that his wife be locked away in the highest tower of the castle, and her lover be put to death. Heartbroken and devastated, the White Lady watched from her prison as her lover was dragged to his execution. She wept for days, her cries echoing through the castle, but the Count showed no mercy. In her grief, she took her own life, throwing herself from the tower. From that moment on, her spirit was said to wander the castle, forever searching for her lost love, her white gown stained with the pain of betrayal. Lucas remembered these stories as he stood frozen in the hallway. The White Lady began to move toward him, her figure gliding through the air as though untouched by the ground. Her veil lifted slightly, revealing a pale, sorrowful face. Her eyes, dark, hollow, and full of eternal grief, seemed to lock with his. Fear coursed through Lucas, but he couldn't move. Her gaze held him captive, and he felt an overwhelming sadness wash over him, as though her sorrow had seeped into his very soul. The closer she came, the colder the air grew. His breath hung in the air as frost began to form on the stone walls around them. "Why are you here?" Lucas whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding of his heart. The White Lady did not answer. Instead, she raised a hand, reaching out toward him as though beckoning him to follow her. Lucas could feel a pull, an invisible force urging him to step forward, to go with her. But his father's words echoed in his mind, "Those who follow the White Lady never return." With a burst of strength, Lucas broke free from her gaze and stumbled backward. The White Lady paused, her arms still outstretched. For a moment, it seemed as though she might follow him, but then, with a final mournful glance, she turned and vanished into the darkness of the corridor, leaving behind nothing but the fading sound of her footsteps. Lucas fled the castle that night, never to return. He knew the White Lady would remain, haunting the halls, waiting for the next soul to witness her eternal grief. As the legend goes, she still roams Eltz Castle, searching for her lost love and serving as a reminder of the tragedy and pain that linger even after death.
On Miss